Hi folks, this is Dr. Tom Barrett. You may have heard about the controversy where a lot of people believe that the government actually caused the Great Depression. Why would they do that? We'll talk about why, but I have to tell you, I can't answer the question about whether they did or not. I can tell you though, that the government put the conditions in place that allowed investors to become speculators. A 10-to-1 leverage. That meant that they could take $100,000 and buy $1 million worth of stocks. That was a recipe for disaster. By contrast, today, you can only take 2-to-1 leverage. So with $100,000, you can buy $200,000 worth of stock. Here's the deal. When markets correct, they drop by 10 to 20%. But the insane leverage that the U.S. allowed in 1929 caused a normal 10% correction to bankrupt hundreds of thousands of people. You got to think about it. If the market goes down 10% and you've only put up 10%, you have no money. You're dead broke. That's what caused the tragedy of 23,000 people committing suicide in 1 year, many of them by jumping off of Wall Street skyscrapers. The government allowed that kind of crazy leverage. This led to the failure of thousands of banks and ultimately to the Great Depression a few years later. Here's the reason why a lot of people believe that the government deliberately caused the Great Depression. Number one, prior to 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act was founded, all money was backed by precious metals. In the 1913 Federal Reserve Act, the government allowed itself to print money backed by nothing. For 20 years, both the real money, the money was backed by precious metals, and the monopoly money circulated side by side. But people didn't trust the Federal Reserve notes because they weren't actually money. The money you carry in your pocket today is not really money. It's an IOU. It says right on it, it's a Federal Reserve note. A note is an IOU. So the Depression gave FDR the excuse to confiscate all the gold coins. Many people didn't even use gold currency. Currency is backed by gold. They actually used the gold coins. So it gave him the excuse to confiscate the gold coins and the gold certificates. Now, when he did that, he actually took 40% of the wealth of the country away from them, something that's never happened before in history. No ruler has ever taken legal money and stolen it from its own people. The irony is that the scholars of the Great Depression will tell you that the Great Depression was actually over before FDR ever took office. It ended in late 1932. Here's one thing we do know. The Fed was founded for one reason, to get rid of real gold-backed money. So the question is, did the bankers and politicians who set up the Fed deliberately create a crash or a depression to take control of our money? Or did they just sit back and wait for a crisis that they knew would probably come at some point? Frankly, we'll probably never know the answer, but we do know the result. Whether they took advantage of the crisis or they created the crisis, the result was the same. The politicians now had the ability to print as much money as they wanted to buy as many votes as they wanted to. The real tragedy is this. In addition to Americans losing millions and millions, billions of dollars, since that time, the American dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power. Today, it takes 25 US dollars to buy what $1 US bought in 1933. Thank you very much, Mr. FDR. God bless you.